Welcome everyone to the video. Welcome to the channel. And I've got a great episode today. I came up with this episode because I like to watch those videos where they bring on an expert and answer questions from the internet. They will be an expert in being a lawyer or an expert in a hospital. In this case, it was an expert in theft. And the question was, why aren't there so many bank robberies, or you don't hear about that many bank robberies anymore? And the answer was, first, there are still bank robberies happening, but there's less and less physical cash. So it doesn't really make it a very good endeavor for the thieves. There's not so much cash there. So that got me thinking. First, that money is disappearing, which I'm already aware of that. We know of the penny situation. And it got me thinking about the church, about what I used to hear about Revelation. So we'll get into Revelation, end times, the Christian church, physical money. We'll get into that in this episode, and about control, primarily about control. Now, I wanted to let me know what you think of the background. I was using a background remover in software, and it was really annoying me the fact that sometimes the background would appear around me, and I didn't like it. And when I would rewatch the videos, I was like, "Ugh, I don't like that. It's annoying me." And so I'm pretty sure it would annoy other people. So definitely upgrading things around here, not just for this channel, my other social media channels as well too. That it'll also help those channels. And hope you like it. Hope you enjoy the video, the content. Most importantly, hope you enjoy the what I have to say. And so let's get into it, because I talked about this before. I grew up Christian, Southern Baptist Church, and of course, we heard a lot about the end times, about Revelation. I was told that eventually physical money would disappear, and there would come a time when you needed some sort of a mark in order to buy and sell things, mark of the beast. And when I was little, it sounded nearly impossible. It sounded like, okay, if that's going to happen, that's going to be hundreds of years down the road. Money was and is physical. You can hold it in your hand, and put it in your wallets, give it to other people without asking anybody for permission. So the idea that physical money might disappear one day seemed like something that could only happen during some sort of dramatic worldwide event. I imagine that that kind of control would arrive loudly. There'd be big announcements, demands, some moment where everyone would clearly understand what was happening and would have to choose whether to accept it. But as I have gotten older, I started to wonder whether that is how something like this would actually happen. Because what I can tell you with complete certainty is that if the events I was warned about were ever going to happen, I think this is exactly how they would happen. Slowly, and I've talked about this before, about control, slowly and quietly, not by forcing the entire world to accept something overnight, suddenly wake up and we got to change, but by gradually making it a part of everyday life. Gradually, that's the key word right there. It would begin with, what do we like? We like convenience. We like to save time. We like things that make life easier. Something that most reasonable people would not have reason to reject. And you know, s- I'm not standing outside of this system pretending that I have rejected all of it myself. I use my phone. I, before it used to be cell phone. We classify it now as a smartphone. Now it's just our phone. I use it to bank. So easy now. Send money with text messages, or just plugging someone's phone number in. I guess it's kind of like a text message. Um, Credit cards, all kinds of forms of digital payment. I try to limit the amount of digital payment systems that I have, but the one platform requires this, the other platform requires that. I enjoy that convenience just like everyone else. How many of us Venmo, Zelle, how easy is that to use that type of system to pay for things? I go to a lot of garage sales, and it's so nice and convenient to be able just to use Zelle, Venmo, tap my phone. So easy. It's the phone that has become an all-in-one solution for managing nearly my entire life. Your cameras, my I never used to carry a camera before. Prior to me being on social media several years ago, I never I wouldn't really take pictures of myself or take pictures or video. Now I'm doing everything. I'm doing video, I'm doing short videos, long video, I'm doing all kinds of things now. My calendar's on there. How many of us use it to map where we're going? I still use it sometimes to map around the city I lived in my entire life. Uh, and then, of course, communication, my connection to all my accounts, my email accounts. I can store my photographs. I can send my photographs into the cloud. All my contacts just follow me from phone to phone to phone. My messages and increasingly my identity. There was a time when losing your wallet was a major inconvenience. I remember one time my dad he didn't lose his wallet, but he always carried a checkbook, a leather checkbook, and used that as his wallet. And it was New Year's Eve. And for New Year's Eve in our Mexican family, we do menudo, and he had put his wallet on the or his checkbook wallet on the car, and we drove probably about 10, 15 miles to the market, and luckily his wallet stayed on top of the car the whole time. But if he had lost it at any point in time, but today, in this day and age, losing access to your phone can temporarily separate you from almost everything. People can steal your identity with it. That did not happen all at once. Nobody stood in front of society and announced that one tiny little device would eventually become the gateway to nearly every part of modern life. It happened one useful feature at a time. First, the phone replaced the camera, the map. I remember when it was a music player. I remember the first phone, I think it was an Ericsson. I have it. And I could load up, I think, 10 songs on it. Then we started shopping with it and banking through it, paying through it, proving who you are, all the notifications, the what do you call it? Um, Authentication apps. I've here in Silicon Valley, and I worked with I worked with many startups, and I remember back in the dot-com era, they were trying to develop products very similar to what we have today. And back then, each individual step seemed harmless because each individual step was incredibly useful. This is how the path gets paved. You do not see the whole complete system because the complete system is never shown to you all at once. You only see the next convenient step directly in front of you. And perhaps this is why so many Christians have happily adopted the same technology that appears to be creating the kind of system they once warned people about. Now, I'm not saying that a smartphone is mark of the beast. I am saying that tapping your phone to pay for something means you have unknowingly accepted some biblical mark. That would have been far too simple. And I do not believe I possess that kind of certainty. But I do find it interesting that many Christians spend decades warning that one day people might not be able to buy or sell something without participating in a particular system. And now many of those same Christians carry a device that connects their money, their identity, communication, location, access to every part of their lives. Again, I am one of those people. That is what makes this worth examining. We were waiting for something to be forced into our hands while willingly placing the entire system into our hands, our very selves. We imagine control would feel like oppression. Perhaps real control would not feel that way in the beginning. Perhaps it would feel like a freedom. It would allow you to do more, move faster, carry less, access everything from anywhere. Dependence would slowly begin to feel like freedom because the system would make your life easier right up until the moment that you tried to live without it. That is the part I believe we often miss when we talk about control. Control does not always arrive as someone taking something away from you. Sometimes control offers you something useful until you no longer remember how to function without it. And by the time you recognize how dependent you've become, walking away no longer feels realistic. Cash is a very good example. Money has not completely disappeared, but we are clearly moving towards a society where cash plays a smaller role in everyday transactions. There are places where people rarely carry it anymore. There are merchants who would rather not accept it. More transactions are happening through cards, apps, even your watches, and especially your phone. The transition did not require one dramatic law forcing everyone to stop using cash. The culture. The culture simply changed. Cash became slower and less convenient, sometimes even suspicious. Now, real quick, I just want to mark, just this is in the modern world. Somebody commented on one of my short videos how in underdeveloped parts of the world, this kind of stuff doesn't apply, but eventually it will reach those spaces as well too. But again, I just want to point out this is in the developed world. I think a lot of people watching these videos are in the developed world. So digital payments have become completely normal, moving from your computer to your phone to an app. And this is where I began talking about the things I was taught as a child. Does this mean we are living in the time described in Revelation? Well, I cannot tell you that. I do not believe the world is about to disappear in one enormous apocalypse that ends all of mankind at the same moment. Many of the predictions I heard growing up were vague enough that they could have been applied to many different moments in history. Every generation has faced war, disease, corrupted leaders, the technological changes, and social instability. But throughout history, people have looked at those events and believed they were living in the final days. I do not think that means Revelation has no value at all. Maybe we have simply misunderstood what kind of truth it really contains. Revelation is not only describing one future moment, it's describing patterns that humanity repeats. The growth of powerful systems, the use of fear, demanding loyalty, the temptation to surrender yourself in exchange for security and or participation. Those patterns have existed many times before, and they'll probably exist many times again. I believe in God, and I simply do not believe that everything I was told about God, prophecy, the end of the world, was 100% correct. I do not, absolutely do not blame the people who taught me. Most of them were not intentionally trying to deceive anyone. They were teaching what they had been taught to them by people before them who had been taught by people before them. By the time that message reached me, it had already traveled through generations of interpretation, through culture, fear, the human imagination. There may have been truth inside of it, but that truth had also passed through many human hands. And human beings can sincerely believe something while still misunderstanding it. Questioning their interpretation does not mean that I have, rejected God. It means I recognize that God and our explanations of God are not necessarily the same thing. I believe the truth may be far more simpler than the complicated timelines and predictions that I was given. I believe the end times is personal. The world may continue for thousands, millions of years after I'm gone, but one day my experience inside of it will end. One day, my world will end. That has happened to every person who has come before us, and it'll happen to every one of us eventually. So perhaps the most important spiritual question is not whether I can correctly predict the end of civilization. The question is whether I understood how to live before my own ending arrived. Did I give myself completely to money, technology, politics, or a religion, or whatever some other human system? Did I allow convenience to replace my awareness? Did I surrender my ability to think because participation was easier than resistance? That is why I believe this conversation matters, even if none of this is the literal fulfillment of revelation. A system does not have to be supernatural to be dangerous. Doesn't have to be the mark of the beast for us to question how much of our identity or money or freedom we have handed over to it. It doesn't have to be the end of the world for it to become the end of something that's important within us. What I can say with certainty is that if control ever became complete, I do not believe it's going to arrive very loudly at all. It would arrive very slowly, quietly. It would not force you to accept it, and it would gradually become a part of your everyday life. You would not see the hidden meaning because each individual step would simply appear very harmless. You would not recognize the destination because you would only be shown the few next feet on the road. You would simply accept the convenience, accept the dependence, then eventually you've accepted the control. And by the time that you finally saw the complete system, you might not or no longer remember that there was ever any other way to live. I hope this hits home for people and again helps people become more aware. And I know we're all the world, most of the world is moving into this, and perhaps we can have a little bit more awareness. Otherwise, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.